Hello, peeps. Um, what a great training we're going to do today. This training is all about the power of the discovery session. This is an area that I know many coaches struggle with. I know that because I was a coach. I got certified as a health coach 10 years ago. I graduated from the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. I attended 4 different detox schools thereafter. And like many of you, I had the same question and problem. How the heck do I convert people to my offers? So please think of the power of the discovery session, not just for one-on-one, because still to this day, I've always converted the best via a phone call, Zoom, Skype. So what we're going to do in this training is talk about how important it is to be able to know what you offer, why you offer it, and also the power of the discovery session isn't just for one-on-one clients. Many of you are struggling with conversions. Many of you ask me questions. Even just 4 coaches asked me this week on discovery calls, what is the best way to convert? Should I have a challenge leading to my offer? Is it a workshop? Is it a webinar? What should be in my funnel? What is the best way to get people to my one-on-one clients and more? I encourage you to drop any question below because I'm going to do a part 2 on answering any questions. So with that being said, I want to dive in today on some things about the discovery call that we often get confused about. So number one problem that I had with a discovery call is I followed that 60-minute discovery call. I think it's a great amount of time, of course, to get to know somebody, but a discovery call is for that person and you to connect, for you to be able to hear the problems and be able to provide your mini solution, whether that is your one-on-one offers, whether it is a group or it's a masterclass or even a paid program, a retreat, a high ticket offer, is that many people will get on the phone for 60 minutes. And by the time you're done that 60 minutes and we naturally are like, oh, well, you should do this. You should do X, Y, Z. And of course, 1, that's not good for liability issues. 2, we also want to make sure that that discovery call is, has kind of a format. Even though I'm not about reading off scripts at all, I do like a discovery call to have a format so that we as the coach know our core questions that we're going to ask. And again, we're not getting into, is this a one-on-one call? Is this a high-end, high ticket? Because the truth is that many of us do need to get on the phone with people to be able to ask them what I call high mileage questions. Number 2, to also be able to understand their problems, their levels of problems. In the way that I teach and the way I built my business is I always look at, well, here's my niche. I know the general problems. Number 2, I have to, of course, have my list of questions for what I call my level 1, 2, and 3 person within my niche. And that person has what I would call the basic beginning symptoms and problems of people right now. I just feel a little nauseous, my stomach's off, sleep's really bad, my hair's falling out, my skin's breaking out. I call them level 1, 2, and 3 problems. Maybe there's some constipation, but they haven't jumped over to what I call level 4, 5, and 6. And 4, 5, and 6 is when the trash can is really starting to overload and they're seeing a spillover of the issues that they had before, but now they're worsening. And most often the person in that 4, 5, and 6 level for me, before I'm getting on a call, so I have these questions in my mind, is that person that has usually gone to the doctor. There has been the battery of testings. And when I say doctor, I mean naturopath or functional medicine practitioner, doctor, gynecologist, hormone specialist. It's all encompassing. And they've been told things like, you have very high cortisol levels. We think that you have leaky gut, or yeah, you have IBS, or, that could be the beginnings of, eczema. We really want to watch this. Or we think you have estrogen dominance. It's a lot of what we call the beginning diagnosis terms, or the beginning diagnosis. And so in my 4, 5, and 6, I always had questions to help myself pre-qualify that person, but more importantly, in my head, knowing what offer would really be the best for them. And then, of course, my, I think 7, 8, 9, 10 is really when that person has entered that disease state. And I would say for most of those clients, many of you who work with hormone, gut, post-cancer, or, a lot of different diseases, that's when there's usually multifaceted issues, such as, and I'll give you a prime example, that person comes and the first thing they put on the sheet before we meet, the form, to sign up for a one-on-one discovery call is, I was diagnosed with SIBO. I had SIBO for X amount of years. I also had asthma when I was younger. I'm finding that I'm having chronic urinary tract infections. My hormones are also off. There's about 10 areas that are completely out of balance, out of whack, and they probably are feeding into each other. So I tell you those 3 different columns, and each one of you, I encourage to write down the types of problems that people are coming to you for, because that market research and understanding your ideal client, not just in who we think our ideal client is, but we only learn this in the showing up and asking high value questions, showing up and understanding who are the people that we're actually attracting. And an example of this is, I talked to Anna yesterday in my membership. Anna has a very similar story to myself, number of different issues, heavy metals, neurological, hormone issues. I mean, it's all encompassing on her story. And I said to her, that is your story and you're an inspiration for people. But at the same time, you're struggling with the ultimate conversion, because it's not that you don't know your ideal client. She's done the market research. She's done what I call the action testing research, where she didn't just sit behind a computer. She tested that in her group with people to get really clear on what her ideal client wants. Gotten people on the phone, gotten feedback. And what she's realized is that her ideal client is not at the commitment level that she's at. It's not that her ideal client doesn't want to get healthy. It's that her ideal client is a new mom. It's overwhelming. And she often hears her ideal client who she's attracting say things like, I just can't get off gluten, or I can't give up my carbs. I can't give up something. And so what the one-on-one calls do for you at any stage of your business, they give you real data in your market research. They also allow you to start brainstorming while you're asking these high-level questions that you have in each different column, and thinking about what is actually the right offer for them and why. And I'm going to do a screen share in about a minute. I'm just going to give you a quick example. In my business, I specialized in gut. I attracted people who anything from food allergies, environmental sensitivities, toxins, energy, fatigue, rashes, a lot of my own story. And what I realized is when I got somebody on the phone, I would just ask a few questions like, hey, um, tell me the goal and the purpose of this call today, because I want to see, and I know you want to see if we're a really good fit. And then letting that person talk, because in that talking and as you take notes and just say to the person on the phone, I'm going to take some notes because I want to really be able to serve you in the highest and best purpose. So if you watch me taking notes right now, it's just to be able to reference them back when we're really putting together, some suggestions and a little roadmap that could alleviate, some of the struggles that you're going through. And then that person would most often talk and they would say, this has been going on for X amount of years. If I heard anything that said something like myself, I started to have gut issues when I was 14, or there are gut issues in the family, or there's autoimmune, or, my mother died. That right away tells me these issues have been not only long-standing, but they are passed down generationally, that they also have the emotions that are passed down when there is either sickness or disease, mental illness, and any of the different core areas we, know are important to actually get healthy. If that person said something like, I've always been healthy. I've always been, the weight that I want. I've always had energy. I've always had great sex drive. And last year, I went through this really stressful time and things got a little out of whack. Just in that one last year, I would say to that person, hey, here are my offers. We can work longer. But I also think that you might just be great with this like kickstart, just to get back things back in the swing. Because trying to push that person, even though sales is to go with the highest, and we know that change requires, time. I also know that if somebody's saying that this happened last year, for most of my clients that I saw in my one-on-one practice, virtually, worldwide, is that many people are not doing about these 5 really basic things. It doesn't mean that all I'm going to talk about is healthy habits, because our ideal client is truly looking for us to connect the dots in this mystery illness world of mass information. So many different dogmatic diets, not that they are not relevant, but our client is just, they're looking for us to give the same roadmap as we in business look for somebody to say, can you tell me just how to get clients? And that's a really big topic. But when we can say, you know what, during this 30 days, we're going to go over the elements of gut health. We're going to go over the elements of, mindset and stress and adrenal burnout and overwhelm. We're going to go through, how do you hold space for yourself when you are a people pleaser, the boundaries, and giving that ideal client and mirroring back to that ideal client some of the things that she or he has said. A lot of coaches, we lose that fluid conversation. That is what a one-on-one call is about. It's just a conversation to listen, to ask high value questions that will help you to really put that person in the best offer that serves them, and not approaching it in what I call sales approach. When we do that, when I say like, we could do this 30, if that woman says to me, I would really love to do that 30 day, I just paid for my child's, college last year. Last month, I had to put in, $3,000, and there is money objections. I don't go into this hard sell. I always said, you know what? I totally understand. I remember when we lost, and I will always infuse a story because that is the connection. Your stories and also validating people and not saying, oh no, you need to do this. You need to, rip away your savings, cause more stress. I always just met people where they were and said, you know what, how about we do this? Why don't we do a 90-minute intensive? I'm going to send you a program 7 days before we meet. I'm going to also send you like 3 little videos on, where to buy your probiotic, where to buy a skin brush, where to buy a tongue scraper. And so that when we get to that session, we can really dive in and personalize, this plan. And I would say 7 out of 10 times that actually happened because I wasn't going in the approach of money, and I wasn't going into the approach of, but I know people need a long time, to make change. Well, we all know that, but we also know that human psychology is, our objections are based on stories, and they're based on our own fears, and they're based, often in reality, meaning, yeah, she does have the money, but she doesn't feel yet that she trusts you enough to invest in your higher packages. So that's how I always did upsells and downsells naturally. And I will tell you that the majority of my clients stayed with me for years. And I felt that was that way because I learned how to build my business from, there were 4 women who truly changed my life. One was a homeopath and our internist. One was my acupuncturist. Another was she was pretty much my shaman. she was just an amazing energy worker. And another one was a Chinese herbalist that I worked with. And I never felt like there was this contract that kept us connected. What kept us connected was that they always really heard me, validated what I was feeling, didn't try to take it away, didn't try to go after the objection and make me feel uncomfortable. They always were like, well, you know what, we can do this. And so because of that, I felt that, yes, contracts are awesome, and they also on our end create sustainability for ourselves. And at the same time, I always looked at it really in the psychology of the person. And if I were in their shoes, what would I want to be offered? Because my ideal client was like me. They were jaded by the system. They had been to a myriad of different people. And so it isn't just, before we go on to the screen sharing, and then we're going to wrap this up, I want to say this loud and clear. It's not just about your offers. It's not just about the perfect list building plan. It's not just about all of the essential steps to building your business. What converts is when each one of us find our way of approaching our business, the ways that we best convert, the ways that our ideal client needs to be listened to and heard so that they feel, again, validated, heard, that they are empowered still with choice. And that's going to be different for each one of you. Some of you say, I don't want to work with anyone 3 months less. And that's great. And own it and never look back, because then that works for your ideal client. But if you're running that model, and Terry Walls and I talked about this on my podcast when I interviewed her, if you're running that model and you're not converting, the model is broken. Even though we know that our ideal client in anything, hormones, estrogen dominance, gut, SIBO, leaky gut, intuitive eating, any different niche, sugar. We know that real lifelong, habits get implemented when someone's with us longer. But if people are not converting from that, think about creating these just different opportunities, so that that person who has their objections and their mindset stuff and their fears and their old stories, their fears about change, that you can still meet them where they are, because I guarantee you will naturally upsell from the person who, of course, has a win and feels that you are most definitely the person. Okay. So this is a checklist that we created a long time ago, because, and the more that I sit back and think, well, every coach has every teaching for how to create a course, how to create a signature program, so many different teachings and modules on, the elements of business, social media marketing. And at the same time, it's vital for us to know how to flow with a conversation. So let me just say this really clearly. A discovery session, I block off 30 minutes. I block that off because 20 minutes is my ideal goal to be with that person. And at 30, I feel like most often we've gotten out of that call what we need. And if there is, if we need to talk more, I will actually say that person, we talked for 30 minutes today. Here are some options. Why don't we talk tomorrow? And, just think about it for the next 24 hours. Think about what feels right for you. That's an approach that I've always used. And I feel that is not pushy. And I know in the health and wellness business, it is different than other businesses when it comes to sales. The health and wellness business it has a different love language in how we speak to people, especially if you're dealing with very sensitive topics or trauma or grief or PTSD, hormonal issues, gut issues. And there's personalities for each kind of person. Really step always back and say, how would I really want to be spoken to, in this situation? And would it feel nicer to have a really great conversation and then follow up the next day? Most often, the answer is yes. What I always did is said, hey, do you want to schedule a time right now? And we would schedule it. If that person was a hard no, I always just did a one-on-one follow-up. I would give them, if I did a one-on-one follow-up, like, it was really great to, talk with you. Here are some low-cost options that maybe we didn't talk about. Because the one thing that I've learned is commitment levels for people, for the masses, happens when there is pain, which is really sad, because that's what we don't want people to get to. But that is most often when we change, when we're sick and tired of being sick and tired. So I always do that. I would say, for those of you who are selling high ticket, or you are using a discovery call to sell your course, or you are doing a discovery call to enlist in a mastermind, most often those length of discovery calls are 60 minutes, simply because you may need to invest a little more time to bring somebody to a $15,000 offer. Also, the same strategy is something that I use after any webinar, challenge, training series, summits. I mean, on any download page, for even a freebie. Hey, grab a strategy session, like let's nail down your gut health, or, let's improve your immune. Did you know that, 80% of your immune system is located, just helping somebody to understand that we would really have a specific goal to see if we were a great match. So just remember that the one-on-one call isn't just for one-on-one. This is how many people convert, because when you can connect with somebody, and that's why I always suggest doing a video connection, because you can feel somebody and they can really get to know you. I feel like it's just a no-brainer. And what I highly suggest for anybody who's building their business and needs structure, because we all need structure so that we don't lose our mind, carve out the days of the week when you're doing discovery sessions. Carve out the days of the week, of course, not on the discovery session days. Maybe you're doing discovery sessions and some sales convos, heart-based sales on Tuesday and Thursday, and you want to make Wednesday and Friday the day that you do coaching, whether it's at night, or maybe you're a 9-to-5er, or you're in a situation where you are being a caretaker right now, either for your family or parents, and you have to see people on the weekends. I still would suggest to differentiate those days so that when you're in the discovery call zone, you stay in that zone. And that same day, you can also, of course, because you're in that real listening, just listening, taking in market research, hearing people's problems, writing them down. It's also a great day to say, I am going to reach out to one podcast today, and see, and, pitch my talk, or talk about, and really creating specific days for specific tasks so you can actually accomplish them. So making sure, and we're just going to go over this so that you have some action steps today. Always know the goal of your discovery call. So for example, if it's one-on-one, that you want that person to, of course, understand your one-on-one offers. And if they can't afford, or the commitment isn't clear, the commitment and trust isn't there yet, that they could either go to your low-cost membership, a low-cost class, a self-paced course, also known as a DIY, do-it-yourself. If, of course, you are doing strategy calls, discovery session calls, during a challenge leading to a paid offer, you can be even doing those calls during the challenge. And then, of course, saying, hey, when you sign up now, you can get this, savings. You can still sell to them even if you haven't released cart open in, on your site or in the digital market. Same thing goes for a webinar. If you're talking about a high-level mastermind, or you're talking about an intensive group that's application only, having those one-on-one calls, then the goal. My goal is to bring this person to application only mastermind. And then you also have a clear understanding, which is why knowing our offers and really pairing them with the problems that we talked about earlier, and knowing your offers as a whole so that you can always easily downsell and upsell. An example would be that this person is not ready to, do a $15,000 mastermind, just not ready yet for whatever reason. That downsell could say, you know what? I totally get it. I hear you. Finances can be crazy. I would suggest, if you want to do this next year, to start putting away, $500 a month, and just, start lessening in these areas. In the meantime, I also have, my membership, which we will be diving into these core 12, modules, and knowing what the downsell could be so that that person can stay in your customer life cycle and really get to know who you are and the value of you, so that there is a natural upsell. Then always have specifically what is your client's most urgent pain point. And this is a biggie. This is different than the pain points of your client, because remember, conversion happens because we actually know what motivates that person. A person can say, well, I have this autoimmune, I have candida, I have urinary tract infections, the laundry list of like mid-level problems, but they're really being affected by like the weight that they've gained, this unexplained weight gain. If we discredit that and we don't listen on a call because we're so worried about, are they going to sign up? Oh my God, is it too much money? That's where money mindset doesn't align with our offers. And so understanding and asking a high level question, these big questions like, what really prompted you to call me today? Just listen. It's these very simple questions. The biggest issue I see in the world is that we are often not heard, or we feel voiceless. We feel, or maybe we've martyred through life, or maybe we feel that if we depend on people, we're weak. Whatever the story is, most people, if you ask them some core basic questions, they will tell you everything. And listening on that call, and what I do in my head is I will count certain words that a person says consistently. And that is sales, but I would say that's just what I call being a good human being and really listening. I talk a lot, but I have an unbelievable ability to listen to people and to hear how many times they'll say, sugar. They might be contacting me for a totally different reason. And that client will say, I just can't stop eating sugar. And I will say on that phone call, it's interesting. You signed up with me today for all these different food allergies. But but you've mentioned sugar like 5 times, that you feel like you have this sugar addiction, and you're like hating yourself and blaming yourself and shaming yourself all the time for, for going to these like this sugary cake and all this stuff that you shouldn't be eating. And we know that information, but it seems like you keep going there. And then when we validate and we hear and we don't try to push our offers per se and what we think that person needs versus hearing that person, usually doesn't go over so well. But what I did in my business is I would say to that woman, you signed up, and we were going to talk about food allergies. You've talked about stress eating. You've talked about this sugar. You've talked about your worry about your husband. This is actually one of my past clients who I worked with, actually the whole family, because she felt that she had a place to just tell somebody what was really going on. And she would say, I'm, so worried about my husband. He travels. He's always stressed. He's not sleeping. Her big motivator was her husband. Her big motive, she felt guilty. She felt all the things, but she was so worried about him. And then, of course, everything else unraveled as we started to work together. And I worked with them as a couple. I worked with each of them individually. And a lot of it was communication issues. A lot of it was being scared to tell the other one, hey, I'm worried about you. Just all the things that happen in our human experience. So action step is, if you feel confident, yes, make your different columns of the pain points that your ideal client come to you. Sit there and say, for those specific pain points, what are my offers? What are my highest, my mid, my low? And if somebody is not ideal for my one-on-one, do I have this other opportunity, such as a do-it-yourself or even a low-cost group? It doesn't even have to be a full-fledged membership. But then you start to really get clear, and you can visualize your one-on-one business in your head as that person speaking, because when we let go of overwhelm and thinking that everything needs to be perfect and exact in our business, then we can really hear our ideal client because we're not massively overwhelmed. Second step is to write your big questions, and really have them on either a form, a pre-qualifying form that you can do in most schedulers. You can even do forms in Google Forms, Jot Forms. These are just forms to, again, give you information so you know, you get a sense of what your ideal client, how motivated they are, and also, just what are some of the biggest problems. So, what is holding you back? What do you need to change right now in order to achieve the goal that you want? So I always said, if you could, wave the magic wand, what would life be like for you? And I would listen. If nothing was stopping you, and just, busyness of life and kids and corporate and, all your stuff in life, what would you really want to change? And then I would say, how long have you been feeling this way? And usually with every answer, if I felt that it was important to share a story about myself, I always did, because I knew that was where the connection happened. Then, as I said earlier, a question that I always asked was, what have you done before? What worked and what didn't? Because I don't want to push something and be like, you should do this, if that person has felt frustrated and felt let down and defeated. And so I always approached my discovery sessions as understanding the psychology of that person, and not devaluing their inability to shift, in their 24 hours, or not making judgments and saying, I don't know why they're not putting their health first. Well, they're not putting their health first because of how overwhelming life is. And then really helping, having some of those big questions to be able to get clear on what areas are actually massively out of balance. And then what areas also just feel like a Tony Robbins, like, okay, so if we changed it, if when we work together, that you were able to come out of our session and have a little roadmap for you as a mom, have a little roadmap for your husband's health, have a little roadmap for your kids, would that lessen the overwhelm? Would it lessen the overwhelm if I went step by step and just crafted like your toolkit? And that toolkit I always had in my mind, even if it was pulling from a few of my different programs, really meeting her or the family where they needed to be and what they wanted, because I knew that explaining to people the value of coaching, that's the intangibles. That's where people say, I don't know if I'm ready to do it. But they have no problem going to the hair salon and spending $275, but committing to a $300 program for a month, or for 3 months at a 1K, they won't do. And instead of me getting frustrated in coaching, because I felt that in the beginning years, I started to realize that maybe the way that I had been taught to do discovery calls, and maybe the approach of sales in this business, and doesn't work. And it never really worked for me when I sold cars, or when I was a waitress or a bartender, or in commercial real estate, because people don't like hard sells. People want to be listened to. And so I started to look at my offers in a way more fitting to the needs of that person, because I knew that if they got a taste of what it was like to work with me for 90 minutes or a VIP day with me, and how amazing it is to have somebody clean out your cabinets, redo your pantry, like just really to create a system in the home, that they would be a client for life unless I wasn't able to serve them anymore. So I would make your big questions, understand the flow of your discovery session, and get really clear on the goal of that discovery session. I do highly encourage having a form. Many of you got forms from your schools. You have, like, I wouldn't say intake forms, but forms like, hey, what's your food like? What do you commonly do in your 24 hours? And so that you can start asking these questions and get a real clear idea, even before you get on the phone with somebody, where they currently are, instead of spending so much time trying to figure it out, then feel rushed to end the conversation. And then it really doesn't create the cohesive connection that is necessary to actually have that person hire you. Again, in whatever way the goal of that discovery session is, whether it's to close to a membership, retreat, high-end mastermind, webinar to a paid program, the power of the one-on-one session is amazing. And so define your goals, know what your offers are in your head. If you can't just say your offers in your head and see different people's problems and hypothetically put them in a different offer, it's really difficult then to ever be able to convert. Because remember, the power of understanding the true beauty of a funnel is that we know the promise, we know the problems, we know the pleasure, we know what that ideal client desires and what they want. And we know that that freebie is going to solve that one mini issue. And that freebie leads to an offer. That offer can be your one-on-one, can be downsells, upsells, etc. When we are clear on our offers, our whole business offers, the flow of our customer life cycle, the divine interactions with our clients and how they need to be spoken to, the possibilities are endless, and the game truly changes. So those are action steps. A lot of the other is talking and really explaining the discovery session and how it can be used in so many different ways. So post under here any questions, because we are kicking off a training, tons of trainings on the power of the discovery session, one-on-one, taking your practice from brick and mortar to online, all of these, what I call core fundamentals of building a business, because there are so many people, guys, so many coaches out there teaching a lot of advanced strategies, which are freaking amazeballs and awesome. But guess what? You can't implement a higher level strategy and not feel frustrated or spend money unless you know how to convert on a webinar, how to say what you do with ease, knowing your offers and seeing that ideal client and who they truly serve. So guys, as always, I anticipated this would be a short call. I will be diving in on the next one on just a quick kind of like take action in 10 minutes. This is an overview of the discovery session and how often we fail to see the power of it, especially in the digital market that we are, living in. That one-on-one is the VIP treatment. That VIP treatment is what your ideal client is going to remember when they reach out to you. They're going to come back to you and say, oh, that person got on the phone with me and gave me some really great suggestions. So take some time, take 24 hours to write down your questions. Think about the types of people you're actually attracting versus what you want for, versus who you think your ideal client is. That's the beauty of also getting real clear market research when you do one-on-one calls. And then also look at how you can level up some of your challenges or even your programs. Get people on a one-on-one call after your program. Take down that hard data. Get, testimonials, like use those times to really build your credibility, really get clear on some of the problems maybe that your clients had going through that program and how you can, shift it and pivot and change, because it's in that part that truly defines our success. Because then we get to take that pain and turn that into a product, amend the course, amend our offers to really fit our ideal client. So with that being said, guys, if you have any questions, please go to rachelafeldman.com. We have an amazing podcast with Terry Walls. We talked about this. We talked about different levels of core offers and why we have them for different commitment points. You can also hear from different coaches on how they built their business. And if you want to go over to our free tool page, there are 2 freebies that have 6 trainings each. We have so much there. And if you have any questions about the Done For You programs, Done For You content, memberships, anything, go to yourhealthcoachbiz.com. All right, guys, drop your questions under and we will see you later. Bye, guys.